If you deal with melasma, this is the video for you. Well, hey guys, today we're going to be talking all things melasma. Triggers, what ingredients work to help get rid of it, and what the best treatments are. Melasma is a very frustrating skin condition to cope with, as is any type of hyperpigmentation. But melasma, in contrast to other types of common skin hyperpigmentation lesions like sunspots, age spots, melasma is a whole different beast. It has different aspects to it, and it is notoriously stubborn to treat and to clear up and get rid of. The thing about melasma that you need to understand first and foremost, so that you can set realistic expectations, is that there's really not a cure for melasma. It's something that you have to babysit and keep an eye on moving forward. You have to avoid triggers, and you have to continue to see your dermatologist, follow up regularly to manage your melasma and keep it under control. Sunspots or age spots, they are discrete individual, whereas melasma, you have these patches that come together into larger patches, usually with sort of angulated borders, and melasma is typically symmetrical, meaning it occurs on both sides of, say, for example, your face. It loves the cheeks, the forehead, the upper lip. What causes melasma to show up in the first place? And why the heck does it seem to love women more so than men? Like, why are we the ones who, for the most part, are plagued with it? Well, a big driving force for melasma is actually hormones, specifically the estrogens and progesterone, female sex hormones. Increased levels of these female hormones can really amp up pigment production. That is why you often see melasma presenting, sometimes for the first time, but often flaring during pregnancy. Melasma can often also be aggravated or triggered by hormonal contraceptive pills that have hormones in them to, regulate your menstrual cycle and as contraceptives, but those can likewise drive melasma, cause it to show up. Not just the birth control pills though, but intrauterine devices, IUDs. The IUDs that release hormones like Mirena, they also can potentially trigger melasma for some people. So that's why melasma loves women. It's our hormones. But there's more to it than just our hormones. There's also, of course, a genetic component. A lot of people with melasma, their mom, their aunt, their sisters have it too. So you can blame your genetics to a certain extent. The other elephant in the room that for someone with melasma you also have to keep at the forefront of your brain when you're trying to manage this condition, because again, it's a lifelong commitment to controlling it, is that blood flow is a big underlying component. Blood flow in melasma, like if you take a skin biopsy of melasma, you're going to see a prominent vascular component that is not present in other types of hyperpigmentation. And it's thought that the blood vessel component of melasma is bringing in maybe inflammatory mediators, growth factors, things that lead to even more pigment production. Plus there's some underlying redness within the skin that also is contributing to the appearance of discoloration with melasma. So it's maybe not exclusively melanin that you are seeing with your eyes, but you also have that background increase in blood flow. And if you have a deeper skin type, that increased vascular component, that part of it of melasma, it can have almost a purplish hue in your skin type as opposed to just what you might think of red. It actually can look more purplish, violet, even somewhat gray. Nothing drives pigment more than unprotected sun exposure. Sun exposure is a threat to melasma. Unprotected sun exposure, I should say, because I don't advocate anybody live in a cave and never go outside and enjoy the outdoors. But if you have melasma, you've got to be really vigilant with your sun protection all year round. You have to also be careful with sunlight that comes through window glass, because the ultraviolet radiation from the sun is a major driving factor for melasma. And those UVA rays from the sun, they actually can penetrate through window glass. If you're sitting by a window, you need to be mindful of that. But it's not just the ultraviolet radiation that comes from the sun that drives melasma. There's another component to it, visible light. That's the light that you see with your eyes. The sun, it is responsible for our ability to see things, right, throughout the day. It illuminates everything. And there's visible light coming from the sun. That's what we see with our eyes. We don't see ultraviolet radiation, we see visible light. And visible light is in a spectrum. And there's one part of that spectrum that really latches on to your skin and drives melasma, and that is blue light. Sun is giving you UV, it's giving you visible light, and it's also giving heat Heat is another trigger for melasma. Heat is going to bring about more blood flow, bring in those growth factors. It can precipitate a flush in certain people, they flush easily. Anything that brings about heat, blood flow to the skin can aggravate melasma. Last but not least, you have to think about your skin barrier. Your skin barrier we talk about as the outermost layer of the skin. It's like a brick wall where the bricks are these little shells of fully mature, differentiated, and now dead skin cells called corneocytes. They are enmeshed in this lipid cement, just like a brick wall. And the skin barrier keeps irritants out and it keeps water in. But if the skin barrier is impaired, you're gonna get more irritating stuff in, and you're also gonna lose water. And because of that, anything irritating to the skin of melasma, it brings in inflammation and it pushes pigment production. So you have to be mindful of your skin barrier as well. For this reason, many people's melasma will be aggravated, exacerbated, recur as a result of irritating skincare products. So if you have melasma, you have to be very conservative with testing out new skincare products and new serums, new active ingredients, because you can really end up actually worsening things in the long run, including pursuing ingredients that are actually evidence-based for melasma. You may hear that an ingredient is good for melasma and you want to try it out, but a side effect of that ingredient might be irritation. If you're not careful, the irritation can actually end up taking you several steps back in your journey to improving the melasma. So keep that in mind too. When you're thinking about your melasma and setting your expectations for managing it and developing with your dermatologist an approach to controlling it, the other thing that you have to bear in mind is that in contrast to some of these other types of hyperpigmentation, which we mentioned here, sunspots, age spots, freckles even, melasma is not just a surface hyperpigmentation. So with melasma, you have pigment in the epidermis, that's the top part of your skin. But you also have issues going on below the skin surface, in the dermis, for a lot of people. Not everyone with melasma, but most people with melasma have this. And so you kind of have to get a sense of to what extent your melasma is epidermal versus dermal. And with your eyes, just looking at your face, you're not really gonna have a good sense of that. The best way to understand that is to have your dermatologist look at your skin using something called a Woods lamp, which is a very useful tool that we have in the clinic, and it provides a good way to assess melasma and have a sense of the dermal versus epidermal component. So that is another key aspect. Like the skincare products that you might use, they may help with the epidermal component, but many of them are really not going to address that dermal part of things. All right, tip number one for managing your melasma, the best thing that you can do. I mean, there are a lot of things that we're going to cover here, but this is just something that you really cannot slack on. That is vigilant sun protection year round, because sun is definitely something that will bring your melasma back time and time again. Not just the ultraviolet rays that damage our skin, cause skin cancer, but also that visible light too. So when it comes to protecting your skin, you really have to do the multimodal approach. You can't just rely on one method. And by that, I mean, you want to wear, of course, sunscreen, and I'll talk about the best options for you, melasma focused. But you also want to be wearing hats, sun protective clothing, seeking shade, and being really mindful of the amount of time you are outdoors, especially when the UV index is very high, when the intensity of the sun is quite strong. You need to be careful. And not only that, when the UV index is high, if it's the summer, for example, it's often very hot. That heat can also aggravate melasma. So you kind of have to be thinking about your outdoor habits. All that being said, I do not want anybody to feel like they have to become a hermit and never go outside and enjoy the outdoors. You certainly can. You just have to be protecting your skin. You might even go so far as to wear a UPF face shield. You also want to wear sunglasses to protect the skin around your eyes. You can get melasma here. Be careful with the sunglasses that you choose though, because sunglasses with metal rims can conduct heat, and that heat can actually worsen the melasma. Now, when it comes to sunscreen, the best sunscreen for your melasma, guys, is always going to be the one that you like enough to wear. That is number one. Number two is if a sunscreen ends up being irritating for you, it is not the one. And we really can't predict what sunscreen is going to be irritating for you versus another. But if it causes you irritation, that is not it. The third aspect of sunscreens that you should really consider heavily, if they are appealing and acceptable to you, I should say, because again, if you don't like it, you're not going to wear it, it's useless. But consider choosing a tinted sunscreen. And the reason for this is that tinted sunscreens have a family of ingredients in them called iron oxides, which is what gives them the tint. Those iron oxides can offer protection against that visible light component. Sunscreens are not intended to protect from visible light. They're meant to protect you from a sunburn, which comes from ultraviolet radiation from the sun, not visible light. But we have come to learn that sunscreens that are tinted and have iron oxides, many of them can actually protect a bit from the visible light. So we tell patients with hyperpigmentation and or melasma, choose a tinted sunscreen. Now online, you will read people saying, well, I heard that you shouldn't use chemical sunscreens if you have melasma because they release heat. This is a myth. Yes, chemical, aka organic sunscreens do work by absorbing and then dissipating UV energy, if you will, as heat, but that heat is not going to heat up your skin. It's on a very negligible level. That being said, their argument is, oh, choose a mineral sunscreen, it doesn't do that. Well, that's wrong too. Mineral sunscreens, those with zinc and titanium dioxide, they too primarily work by absorbing UV rays and dissipating some of that energy as heat. But it's not enough to heat up your skin, to encourage blood flow. So don't worry about that. Worry about the sunscreen that, choosing one that you like and that is not irritating. Those should be at the forefront and making it a consistent habit, something that you do on a daily basis, regardless of what the weather is like, regardless of even what you have planned for the day. Because with melasma, you have to be a bit more defensive. Then we have your skincare. This is something that you can be very proactive about so as to help cut down on recurrences. With your skincare, it's not about the best ingredient for melasma, but rather let's stay consistent and keep things simple and streamlined to support the health of the skin barrier. Because remember, if the skin barrier gets agitated, more likely that your skin becomes irritated by things that can lead to dryness and ultimately will worsen melasma, which you don't want. The way I recommend keeping your skin barrier supported is using mild, gentle cleansers. Not anything super harsh. Cleanse your skin in lukewarm to cool water, not hot, because again, that heat can aggravate the melasma, plus it's irritating to the skin. Make sure you rinse the cleanser off thoroughly. Depending on your skin type, you may only need to wash your face once a day. Some people with oilier skin benefit from washing twice a day. I've got videos on this as a side note, so we won't belabor that point. The other thing is moisturize your skin. Moisturizers help support your skin barrier, help reduce water loss and limit penetration of irritants that would otherwise aggravate your skin. Now, the good news is you're going to be wearing your sunscreen, right, during the day. And sunscreens are moisturizing. They're in a moisturizing base, lotion, cream. So that's going to help not only protect the skin of melasma from UV, but it's also going to help support the needs of the skin barrier throughout the day, limiting penetration of irritating things. Now at night, your skin is more prone to losing water. That's just how our skin works. So I suggest using a bland, and by bland I mean free of fragrance, moisturizer to the face to help reduce water loss as you sleep. If you live somewhere with really dry air, especially in the winter time when you have the heater running a lot, you may choose to run a humidifier, help cut down on dryness and allow your skin barrier to, be kind of optimized. This is not something you want to do alone. When you see your dermatologist, one of the, go-to first-line treatments for melasma is something called triple combination cream. Now, one of the main ingredients in that is hydroquinone, 4%. Hydroquinone is an ingredient with a long-standing track record for efficacy for treatment of a variety of conditions of hyperpigmentation, including melasma. It works by putting the brakes on pigment production, and it's actually, goes about kind of helping to destroy some of those overzealous melanocytes. The thing about hydroquinone is that A, it can be irritating. Irritation can worsen melasma. B, there's some concern around using it long term. So it's something we use more for a short period of time to clear up some hyperpigmentation. There are some risks that not only is it irritating, but for some people, if they use it for a long period of time in an uninterrupted fashion, there's concern that you might actually have a rebound, a worsening of melasma and pigment problems, especially in the surrounding previously healthy skin. So it's not something to really play around with. Use it under the supervision of your dermatologist. It used to be available at a weaker strength over the counter, but with the CARES Act, it no longer is. I have videos explaining that. If you're curious why you can't buy like Ambi Fade Cream, which had hydroquinone in it anymore, I explain there. But it's a safe ingredient when used appropriately. So what is triple combination cream then? If it's 4% hydroquinone, but it also has 0.05% tretinoin. Now in my videos on tretinoin, I've talked about how it can help with hyperpigmentation by suppressing tyrosinase activity, as well as putting the brakes on some of the pigment pathways that get upregulated when you are exposed to UV, provided you're protecting your skin from the sun. The third aspect of the triple combination cream is a topical steroid, 0.01% fluocinolone acetonide. This steroid is anti-inflammatory, and it works for melasma for a few reasons. First of all, it helps cut down on the irritation that can come about for both hydroquinone and tretinoin in the formula. And secondly, it also suppresses pigment production. Now, this triple combination cream is definitely something that you would only want to use under the supervision of your dermatologist. Like hydroquinone alone, it's not something that is intended to be used indefinitely, because not only do you have the hydroquinone concerns in there, but you also have the concerns with a topical steroid, which used long-term can have side effects like acne-like breakouts, perioral dermatitis, thinning of the skin. So it's definitely not something to just, get your hands on and use without dermatologist supervision, because there are side effects for which you need to be monitored for. Triple combination cream is FDA approved for melasma, typically used, oftentimes for about 8 weeks, although every patient, their treatment plan is different. So that's just a general, kind of approach, but your dermatologist may take a different angle. Triple combination cream is available by prescription, but a lot of dermatologists actually compound their own formulas with a compounding pharmacist. They may have tretinoin and hydroquinone and a steroid. They may have something else in their formula, like some of the other pigment lightening ingredients that we've talked about on my channel. I have a video on ingredients for melasma, so I'll link that down below. But things like kojic acid, for example, may be compounded into these creams. Now, triple combination cream is not safe in pregnancy. So what we usually do for patients who are developing melasma in pregnancy is lean into another medication that can be helpful for melasma, azelaic acid. 15% azelaic acid can be actually as effective as hydroquinone for melasma, and it's safe in pregnancy in contrast to hydroquinone. So that is, something else that can be used either in pregnancy or outside of pregnancy once, like maybe you need to take a break from the triple combination cream. That is another topical option as well. Azelaic acid works by inhibiting those melanocytes from overproducing pigment. Now, an ingredient that may be compounded into a prescription that your dermatologist writes for you, or that you can find actually in many moisturizers, sunscreens, it's worth looking out for when you are choosing a moisturizer, a sunscreen, even a cleanser, because it's often in those as well and can be beneficial, is niacinamide. With the caveat that if you don't tolerate niacinamide, you find it irritating, avoid it, because again, anything that's irritating to your skin can worsen melasma. But what I like about niacinamide for melasma, as well as other hyperpigmentation conditions, is that niacinamide inhibits the transfer of pigment packets from the melanocytes, those are the cells that make pigment, to the surrounding keratinocytes in your epidermis. So it kind of helps suppress staining, if you will, of the surrounding skin with pigment. Niacinamide is also anti-inflammatory, which is going to help cut down on irritation in the skin that can further worsen melasma. Niacinamide also has some anti-redness effects. likely through the anti-inflammatory benefits. So again, that's going to be beneficial for that vascular component. And the other reason why I think it's a really great ingredient to entertain, provided you tolerate it, is that it also helps improve ceramide production in the top layers of the skin, the barrier, that lipid cement between the bricks of your skin barrier. So it helps support barrier health, and ultimately that is going to help cut down on the penetration of irritants that would otherwise aggravate your melasma. So in my mind, niacinamide is a great thing to try out, provided you tolerate it. It's widely available. It's pretty well tolerated. I would say you don't need to go higher than 4% niacinamide. Many products out there have much higher percentages. The higher percentages don't necessarily offer any additional benefit that we have confirmed in studies, but they do come with an increased risk of irritation, which you were wanting to avoid if you have melasma. For many patients with melasma, especially that is not responding well to the triple combination cream, they may be a candidate for an oral medication that you take by mouth called tranexamic acid. Now, this is a medication that is meant for reducing bleeding. It's used, in surgery, and it works by inhibiting something called plasmin. But come to find out, it helps a lot for melasma, maybe by addressing that vascular component. It's also thought that it helps inhibit pigment production as well. Now, this can be very effective. In fact, it is more effective to use oral tranexamic acid along with triple combination cream. Like, many patients get better results with this combination of the triple combination cream plus tranexamic acid in terms of clearing things up than they do with either treatment alone. Tranexamic acid may not be right for you. It's contraindicated in people who have risk factors for developing blood clots. Now, when you go into Sephora, Ulta, the drugstore, you're gonna find a lot of skincare products that have tranexamic acid in them. So what about applying it to the skin? Is that good for melasma? It seems to be pretty well tolerated, although again, with the caveat that anything you put on your skin that is irritating to you, avoid with melasma. Tranexamic acid applied to the skin, we don't really know if it's that effective for the hyperpigmentation with melasma. People have gotten good results with topical tranexamic acid when it is actually used alongside in-office microneedling, because the microneedling, which is basically putting little tiny channels in the skin, poking little tiny holes, it allows for the tranexamic acid to really get in there and have a better chance of helping. But we don't really have good studies showing benefit for like the topical tranexamic acid that you might find in a cosmetic product for melasma specifically, although it may actually be helpful for the vascular component, the redness. So it's not useless, but it's not like the most evidence-based thing out there for melasma. The topical form, the oral form, lots of research to support its efficacy for melasma. Now, there are a lot of other in-office things that definitely can be tried as part of the toolbox for controlling this, depending on the severity and things of that sort. One thing that's actually can be somewhat underrated, in my opinion, for improving the appearance of melasma, clearing it up, especially the epidermal component, are very light in-office chemical peels. Using salicylic acid or lactic acid, they really just help start to lift up some of the pigmented stuff in the top layers, clearing it out, and also have some suppressive effects on pigment production. Now, I have a video, as a side note, all about everything you need to know about chemical peels, and I break it down there as far as the different types of peels, so watch that video if you are interested in peels. But they definitely can be very effective for improvement of melasma. Not a cure, but can get, get improvement and make things look better. The other thing in office is microneedling. We already talked about microneedling with tranexamic acid, but a lot of people get some decent results with microneedling plus platelet-rich plasma, PRP. Not as many research studies on that, but a lot of people do end up getting good results with that. That's another thing that may be tried. You have laser treatments, and laser treatments can help, but they can also be a curse. So proceed with caution when it comes to lasers or IPL, which is not technically a laser, intense pulse light. If you're gonna try those things, you need to be very careful. only go to a board certified dermatologist with expertise in using that laser on people who have your skin type, especially. Ask to see pictures, because I'm telling you, lasers, they can generate heat in the skin, and if the wrong laser setting is chosen, or in the case of IPL, which is intense pulse light, not technically a laser, if the wrong settings are chosen, not only can it worsen your melasma, make it really, really, severe, but you can get a burn. All right, y'all, that is everything I wanted to talk about in today's video about melasma, avoiding triggers like heat, irritating skincare products, avoiding unprotected sun exposure, keeping a gentle skincare routine that supports barrier health. These are the proactive things that you can do to control it. You really cannot let your guard down when it comes to melasma. There's not a cure for it. Some women who develop melasma in pregnancy, once they deliver, the melasma actually does oftentimes die down, go away, and resolve, but they are at an increased risk of it coming back. So you can't really let your guard down with melasma. Anyway, y'all, I hope this was helpful to you, and if you liked it, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and as always, don't forget, sunscreen and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.